listening to the WrestleHavoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky DeReyes. This is the WrestleHavoc Podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky DeReyes, right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, here to review AEW Dynamite from March 8th, 2023. We got a lot of things to talk about right here on the show. Of course, the big thing that happened on Dynamite tonight was Powerhouse Hobbs beating Wardlow in the Falls Count Anywhere match to win the TNT Championship. Wardlow is no longer the TNT champion after just winning the title at the pay-per-view this past Sunday, and caused a lot of uproar on social media, and I do not blame everybody for being upset on social media. I thought the way that they executed Powerhouse Hobbs' win was probably really dumb and one of the worst booking decisions, in my opinion, that AEW has made. If there's one thing that you can say negatively about AEW is Wardlow. Wardlow, I do not know how they did it, but Wardlow's momentum last year, in the spring of last year, was so high, man. This guy was literally set to become like the hottest thing in the company, and they literally squandered all of that momentum with his first TNT title run. Not only that, they gave him back the TNT championship, and all of a sudden, you know, in the Revolution review this past Monday, I was saying like, hey, they're gonna, I think they're gonna bring back, Wardlow's momentum and all that stuff. But no, they had Wardlow drop the title to Powerhouse Hobbs. I have no problem with Powerhouse Hobbs winning that title. I just hated the way that they executed it. I thought the timing was bad, and the fact that they brought in QT fucking Marshall, of all people, was the dumbest thing that AEW has done. But also, and other stuff that we have right here on the review, we have the All-Atlantic champion, Orange Cassidy, defending his title against Jay Lethal. And next week, Orange Cassidy will have his final defense of the All-Atlantic championship, because the All-Atlantic title is actually no longer going to be called that. It is now going to be called the AEW International Championship, and I will give you guys my thoughts on that as well. We had video packages of both MJF and Bryan Danielson after their amazing, probably match of the year, and I stand by that statement, Iron Man match at Revolution. Fantastic stuff, by the way. MJF, as he stated in that video package, will have his re-bar mitzvah, and Bryan Danielson states that he's going to be going home. What is he implying? We're going to be talking about that right here on the channel. Plus, the Blackpool Combat Club are officially heels. What does that lead to with Bryan Danielson as well? We're going to be talking about that as well, and a lot of other stuff right here on the AEW Dynamite review. But before I get on with all of this craziness, make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc Podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, the WrestleHavoc Podcast is also available on audio platforms. It is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to listen to the WrestleHavoc Podcast in audio format, it is available on all of those platforms. Plus, if you guys haven't checked it out, the Revolution review is up on the channel. We talk about this amazing pay-per-view. Even though the build for Revolution really wasn't the best, let's be 100% honest with ourselves. Revolution was a fantastic, and I mean fantastic, pay-per-view. I thought the show flowed very, very well. The crowd in San Francisco was fantastic. And, of course, we had two amazing matches. Of course, we had the Jon Moxley versus Hangman Page Texas Death Match, which was very, very, very brutal. And we also had, of course, the main event, that being Bryan Danielson versus the generational talent, the AEW World Champion MJF, in the 60-minute Iron Man match. And that will probably go down as the match of the year, but it will probably go down as most likely one of the best Iron Man matches of all time. So if you guys haven't checked out my Revolution review, the link will be in the description below. But let's get on with AEW Dynamite. Viewer discretion is advised. Well, not viewer discretion is advised. Hopefully, you guys are not wearing headphones, because clearly I forgot to turn off my intro once again. Yeah, it's a common thing right here on these reviews. I do not know why. I tend to forget to turn off my intro. But I'm working with OBS, so bear with me here. We start off with Orange Cassidy versus Jay Lethal for the All-Atlantic Championship. Overall, I thought it was a good match. This is the third match of their trilogy. I believe they wrestled the first time this past August on Dynamite, and they wrestled again this past January. And a lot of fans were criticizing as to why we were getting this match, again. It's not as bad as WWE rematches were under Vince McMahon, but still, was there really a reason as to why we are going to be getting this match once again? Relatively, there's a simple answer to that, and that is no. But Tony Khan explained on on Twitter, that this match did really high viewership every time when they did this match. So that's basically the main reason as to why they did it. So that's why we're getting this match. But is that a very much logical reason for me to care as a viewer watching this match? No. But Orange Cassidy has been on a roll as the All-Atlantic Champion, now the International Championship, and he will wrestle Jay Lethal. I will give you guys my thoughts on that, but let's go through the match. We got a side headlock takeover by Cassidy, followed by an arm drag by Lethal. Then Cassidy goes for an arm drag of his own, followed by a backslide. We get a side headlock takeover again by Cassidy, but then Cassidy goes for the side headlock takeover once again. At this point, Lethal is on the outside, but then Orange Cassidy chases him around. Cassidy then counters the lethal injection attempt, followed by the figure four by Jay Lethal. We got a roll-up attempt by Cassidy, but then Cassidy tries to go for the beach break. After that, we get a roll-up by Lethal and a near fall. At this point, both roll each other up with roll-up reversals. After that, Cassidy counters the lethal injection once again. Cassidy goes for the suicide dive, a.k.a. the tope suicida, and then he gets caught by Lethal, but then Lethal gets pushed into the ring post. Lethal then reverses Cassidy onto the ring steps, but then we get a hammer throw by Cassidy. Lethal then regains control. He hits a shot on the knee of Cassidy when he gets caught onto the ropes. Cassidy is on the outside, but then Lethal is in the ring doing the strut. After that, he goes to the outside and hits a kick. He drives Cassidy spine first onto the apron. He then picks up Cassidy and drives his knee onto the post. Once we're back from commercial break, Lethal is in control over Cassidy. We get a kick by Cassidy, followed by a couple of right hands by both. Both exchange shots, but then Lethal tries to pick him up. Then Cassidy tries to go for the stunt dog millionaire, but then Lethal counters that. Cassidy then counters back with a brainbuster, but then Lethal runs into the corner. Cassidy then goes to the apron, but then Cassidy fights off Lethal. We get repeated rights by Lethal. After that, we get a couple of chops by Lethal. Cassidy's on the top, but then Lethal also goes to the top, but then we get repeated rights by Cassidy. Cassidy then goes for the diving DDT. He follows up with a tornado DDT, which looked pretty sick. We get a cover by Cassidy and a near fall. He tries to go for the orange punch, but then Cassidy sells his knee. After that, Lethal tries to apply the figure four, but then Cassidy rolls around to the bottom rope. At this point, both are on the apron, but then Cassidy casually chops Lethal. Cassidy then goes for repeated clotheslines, but then Lethal misses the enziguri. After that, he gets caught by Lethal, but then he drops down on his knees. Then he kicks the knee of Orange Cassidy. Lethal once again applies the figure four. Cassidy goes for the inside cradle, but we get a near fall, but then Lethal goes for the lethal combination. After that, he goes to the top, but then Cassidy gets his knees up when Lethal hits the elbow drop. Lethal then counters the orange punch into a cutter, which was probably one of my favorite spots in the whole match. We get a cover by Lethal and a near fall, and then he picks up Cassidy, but then Lethal drops him onto the ropes. Lethal goes for a couple of thrust kicks. He tries to go for the lethal injection, but then he falls and drops down on his shoulder because throughout the whole match, he was actually selling his shoulder. After that, Cassidy gains the advantage and hits the orange punch. We get a cover, and Cassidy retains the All-Atlantic Championship. After that, Lethal comes in with Paul Walter Hauser's Golden Globe. Yes, they're still doing that whole angle with Paul Walter Hauser, which I think is really stupid at this point. Why the hell Jay Lethal has that Golden Globe makes no sense to me whatsoever, in my opinion. But then the referee interferes. But then what happens? Jeff Jarrett, Jeff, he comes in from behind and hits basically Cassidy with the stroke. It looked like he was actually going to hit him with the guitar from behind. But no, instead he hit the stroke, and then he hits the guitar. He bashes it onto the knee of Cassidy. But then the best friends come in for the save. Wow, perfect timing. Overall thoughts on this match. It was a fine match. Was it the best match of their trilogy? No. I mean, I haven't really watched back their matches, to be quite honest with you. I got to watch those matches back to basically give you guys my full opinion if what match was better than the other. But overall, it was a fine match to open Dynamite. Tony Khan did state, on Twitter saying, this match did a high rating, so that's why we're doing this match again, which, in my opinion, from the fans' point of view, is not really a logical reason to book a match, in my opinion, but it is what it is. But overall, okay, I'm kind of through with Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett at this point. I think we should move on. But from AEW perspective, they're not going to move on from that. But overall, it was a fine match. We get Powerhouse Hobbs backstage, and he gets interviewed. Talks about how it was so unfortunate about what happened to Wardlow. If you guys actually do not know, Wardlow, unfortunately and sadly, got his rental car bashed in San Francisco, I believed, and he got all of his gear taken away, everything just taken away. He basically got robbed, which really sucks, by the way. Hopefully everything is all well with Wardlow. And talks about how he lost his gear. He lost everything, and his life is in shambles. He looks at himself, and there's one thing that he has left, and that the one thing is that he's being called champion. And tonight, he is taking that away. All right. So, yeah, that was basically a promo before the main event, which you had Hobbs actually beat Wardlow for the TNT title with the help of QT Marshall. And trust me, we are going to be ranting on that right here on this channel, because I thought the way they executed that really pissed me off so bad. We got a Ricky Starks segment. Yes, Ricky Starks coming off of his second win against Chris Jericho this past Sunday at Revolution. Talks about how for the past 10 days he has been spending his time in California. Talks about how he beat Chris Jericho at Revolution, and he thinks he's having one hell of a week. Week after week, he is taking down JAS and Chris Jericho. He's done it basically all the time on TVs and pay-per-views. But the question is, what's next for him? The answer is he is not sure. The question that weighs on his mind is now what he is going to do next. But where is he going to go next? So after somewhat of that promo by Ricky Starks, what happens? The Bullet Club logo actually shows up on the Tron, and that actually got a huge pop by the crowd. It actually shocked me as well. The Bullet Club logo on the Tron. And then what happens is, from behind, Juice Robinson, yes, Juice Robinson, attacks Ricky Starks from behind. And this is actually very, very, very interesting. And on social media, the reaction was very split. There were some people that actually liked this, and there were some other people that did not understand the whole point of this. And I was kind of in the middle. I honestly was kind of in the middle. When it comes to Ricky Starks, I think I've always stated this. After the match he had with MJF, the number one thing that AEW really needs to do throughout this year is keep the momentum going with Ricky Starks. Now, we do not know right now where his momentum is going, especially because of the fact that he's going to be wrestling Juice Robinson. But the fact that the Bullet Club logo actually showed up in the Tron, it was very interesting, considering the fact that as soon as the Bullet Club logo popped up, I immediately thought it was going to be Jay White, but apparently that's not going to be the case. Now, granted, Jay White is still a free agent. He's no longer with New Japan Pro Wrestling. But there's a lot of rumors speculating the free agency of Jay White, whether he's going to be going to AEW or whether he's going to be going to WWE. Personally, I would love to see him in AEW, but if he goes to WWE, hey, he wants to go to WWE, let him go to WWE. But it's very interesting. Now, I believe there was a promo that I actually did not watch yet of Juice Robinson that AEW posted on their social media. And they talked about how he wants to bring a Bullet Club invasion to AEW. What does that imply? I have no idea. But there's many different layers to this, and I don't think it stops with Juice Robinson. I think they're planning on something much, much bigger that maybe we do not know what is going to be happening yet. But that is just me. But it's going to be very interesting to see where AEW goes with this. We get a backstage interview with Wardlow. He is asked where his head is at, and he talks about how Wardlow he deals with a great deal of lost, and some people let him borrow some clothes. That being FTR. Wardlow is wearing an FTR shirt, and after that, he talks about how he wants to wrestle a Falls Count Anywhere match. He will know how to demolish him, and he is the TNT champion, and no man on this earth is going to take that from him. After that, we get a Ruby Soho interview. Of course, Ruby Soho this past Sunday at Revolution after the very good triple threat match. I thought the triple threat match was very good between all three women. Both Jamie Hayter and Saraya and Ruby Soho did very, very, very well. Ruby Soho, of course, swerved us all, and she aligned herself with Saraya and Toni Storm, which pretty much makes total sense considering the fact that the whole storyline regarding Saraya and Toni Storm is basically the homegrown talent versus the established stars, and Saraya and Toni Storm are established coming from the WWE. They're basically wanting to do the same thing with Ruby Soho, and it made total sense for them to do that. So Ruby Soho cuts a promo, and I will say this was a very good promo that Ruby Soho cut. She talks about how the question is why. So it's obvious. She doesn't think it comes to us as a surprise. We all created this monster. We ran it back. Her very first title match was in Grand Slam 2 years ago against Britt Baker. When she beat her, she was thrilled. Fast forward later on to the finals or the semifinals of the Owen Hart tournament. She faced Chris Statlander. Can we remember the response after she beat her? They booed her out of the damn building. And then Jamie Hayter pinned her in the center of the ring. She realized then that no one was going to come to her defense. After that, she says that no one here in AEW was ever going to appreciate her. She ain't the only one. Storm wasn't also appreciated by everyone, and they didn't even call her the actual champion. Of course, that is actually very much true. Toni Storm was the interim champion. And then what happened was when Jamie Hayter won that title, they immediately changed that title's name to the world champion because Thunder Rosa's injury was much more severe. It talks about how we all begged Saraya to come out of retirement. And she does. Us trolls came after her in a moment's notice. She basically called all the fans neckbeard, mouth-breathing trolls, which was the funniest shit I've ever heard. Talks about how they've been all outcasts and they came here to rebuild the women's division, and we can't build something on a broken foundation. We need to start new. And also that she basically talks about how we're all the entitled little shits in the back, that being the locker room. She proceeds to run down the whole roster, and she brings out Sky Blue, which is actually her opponent. First off, what are my thoughts on this promo? I thought this was a very good promo by Ruby Soho. She actually gave us a legit explanation as to why Saraya and Toni Storm are doing all of this crap going on in the women's division. And again, I think it's starting to hit its ceiling. I remember saying a couple of weeks ago that this whole storyline in the women's division regarding the homegrown versus established feud, right now is kind of dying down a bit. It wasn't really, interested and invested in what was going on. And I still feel that way. But with the addition of Ruby Soho, I think they're definitely going to have some sort of direction. And I feel like this is not the end of what they are doing when it comes to this whole thing. I think this is definitely going to be leading to one big blow-off. And a lot of people on social media were actually talking about this. What if this leads to a women's blood and guts match? I mean, that's very interesting to think about because, of course, AEW has had two different blood and guts matches, and both of them were very good, and I'd be very interested to see a women's blood and guts match. I think it's going to be fucking anarchy if that happens, but overall, that was a very good promo by Ruby Soho. So we later got Ruby Soho versus Sky Blue in a very good match, in my opinion. Let me just change that date because I clearly botched the date on this text scroll because I'm dumb. There we go. We're set. So we got Ruby Soho versus Sky Blue in a relatively short match. Sky Blue is very good at what she does. She's a very good wrestler in the ring. I believe she did wrestle on the ROH tapings last week, so she's definitely getting some reps in. But of course, you knew who was going to win. Ruby Soho definitely went over. Quick notes on the match. Ruby Soho goes after Sky Blue. Ruby is in control. We get a kick by Ruby, and then she takes Sky Blue to the ring. We get an enziguri by Ruby. Then we get a slap by Sky. We get a right hand by Ruby after that. Ruby then goes for the back heel trip. We get a cover engineer fall, and once we're back from break, Ruby Soho is on the apron. We get a kick by Ruby Soho, followed by a Saito suplex. She then goes for a second Saito suplex. After that, Soho misses the kick. We get a couple of right hands by Sky, followed by a knee. After that, she goes for a spinning kick and then a boot. She goes to the top, but then she hits a crossbody. We get a cover and a near fall. Soho then goes for a kick, but then Sky goes for a thrust kick after that. Then she takes Ruby Soho up, but then Ruby Soho pulls her hair. After that, Ruby then goes for the Destination Unknown, and we get a cover, and Ruby Soho gets the win. After that, the heels, Saraya and Toni Storm, come in with the spray paint, which I still absolutely do not like. It's very, bootleg NWO-esque, but at the end of the day, it's not really because of the fact that it's a ripoff of the NWO. I just don't like the fact that it's just so fucking cringe. Like, the way that they use the spray paint, it is the cringiest shit I've ever seen. Please stop using the spray paint. It's annoying. But Willow Nightingale comes in for the save, and Saraya and Toni Storm attack her from behind. After that, Soho then goes for the no future on Willow Nightingale, and all three heels stand tall in the center of the ring. Overall, short match between Ruby Soho and Sky Blue. Really, the whole main thing when it comes to this whole match was basically not even the match. It was the promo itself by Ruby Soho. And I think there's going to be some sort of direction. Again, I want to repeat myself here. This whole storyline, I wasn't really as invested, and I'm still not really as invested in it. Like, I'm going to be honest. I don't watch AEW for the storyline. Like, I'm not really as invested in it. But, I'll say this. It's going to be very interesting to see where they go in the next few months, because I feel like this is only one layer to the whole story. I think they're definitely going to be doing something much, much bigger in the near future that they're waiting off on it. But yeah, that was my thoughts on that. We got a Hangman Page backstage interview with Renee Paquette. Renee asks Hangman, how is he doing? Hangman states that physically he has been better, but in his mind, it's all well. Sunday, he basically did something with no light, but he had to. If he wanted to try him, he will rip off all of their flesh, choke them, and ride them back in. And after that, he's asked if him and John are done. And then Hangman proceeds to apologize to Renee Paquette and says, I apologize for Sunday, but tell Mox that he is finished. He basically tells Moxley on the screen that, hey, we're done. Clearly, that is not what happened after this show is over. We then get an amazing video package and an amazing promo by MJF after his Iron Man match that he had with Bryan Danielson. So he cuts this promo all bloodied up in the backstage area, and he says, with a tear in his eye, us fans, we were questioning him. You wanted to doubt his ability in that ring. Yes. Are you worried about my mental health? Maybe you, that being us fans, you should get checked. Actually, because we actually thought Bryan Danielson was on his level, best in the world, my ass. He just made the dragon tapped out. He snapped his wing clean off, and baby, he is the devil. He has horns growing out of his head, and he has a silver tongue, and he is the greatest prize of them all. He kisses the belt, and of course he is talking about the Triple B, the AEW World Title, and knows that his back is no longer against the wall. He talks about how he is feeling good, and he is feeling good in San Francisco. But he is ready to celebrate. March 15th is his birthday, and he will scroll on into wretched Winnipeg, and he will celebrate the fact that he is the most complete wrestler in the world. He is not going to have a regular birthday, though. No, that is for chumps. MJF is going to have his re-bar mitzvah, and nobody is dethroning the devil because his reign of terror has just begun. I'm getting a little tongue-tied. Jesus Christ. What the hell is wrong with me today? But yeah, man, that was the promo by MJF. Overall, great promo. MJF never disappoints on the microphone. I talked about this on the Revolution review, and I'm actually going to put it in a short that I'm going to be uploading on YouTube as well. After this match, all of the haters that MJF receives all the time, all the haters that constantly criticize MJF for saying that he can't wrestle, blah, 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 he's this or he's that, he's repetitive, blah, blah, blah. All of those people are absolutely silent right now. They're absolutely silent. And I laugh because clearly those people are in denial about how good MJF is. MJF right now is the best heel in the fucking business today. He is that damn good. And I'm very interested to see what they do next week on Dynamite, because it's going to be his birthday and they are going to be in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do. MJF is going to have his bar mitzvah, which, yeah, he's going to have that. So what are they going to be doing? Are they going to set up a new feud? Who knows? But, one of the things that I'm definitely looking forward to next week on Dynamite is definitely that MJF segment coming off this amazing Iron Man match that he had with Bryan Danielson. Tony Schiavone interviews FTR. Yes, FTR, the best tag team in the world, made their return this past Sunday at Revolution, attacking the Guns. I'm not really buying the Guns as the AEW World Tag Team Champions, but they cut a fantastic promo, and I'm going to be honest with you guys. FTR, a lot of people talk about how FTR's momentum kind of went downhill after they lost all of their titles, but I'm going to be honest right here, man. FTR is still relatively over with the audience. They are super popular, man. They got a standing ovation a couple of times during this segment. Fantastic stuff, man. That is why FTR is probably the best tag team in the world today. It's not the Usos, it's FT-fucking-R. So we get a bunch of FTR chants by the crowd. Once again, we get a standing ovation for FTR. Cash says that he's missed that. So we said over and over how great 2022 was for us, but how bad, the last few months was for them. They talk about how they lost to the Acclaimed, they lost to the Guns, and they lost 3 sets of tag team titles in a span of a month. Of course, he is talking about the IWGP tag titles, the ROH tag titles, and the AAA tag team titles. And after that, talk about how they lost one of their best friends in wrestling. Of course, he is mentioning Jay Briscoe. We got a bunch of Jay chants as well. They needed to step away. But right now, he cannot sit at home in a good conscience and watch the Guns call themselves the best tag team in wrestling. They are good, but they are spoiled, entitled, disrespectful little assholes. That's what Cash stated. And talks about how their father, Billy Gunn, gave them everything that they asked for. His father could never do that. He taught him how to fight and be respectful. And he will do exactly what his father taught him to the Guns. Dax then wants to talk about what he cares about. Of course, he mentions his wife, his daughter. Your typical Dax Harwood stuff, but I always like him when he mentions that, man. Dax Harwood is a down-to-earth type of guy. That's all of them. But, they never left the fan. That being the fans. The fans never left them. Pro wrestling never left them. That is why he loves this industry so much. And damn, he loves the fans as well. December, they closed the book on the greatest year that they had. But of course, we got a bunch of FTR chants, and they talk about how they closed the book on the greatest trilogy of matches. Of course, he is talking about the FTR versus Briscoes matches. And they knew that they did something special in this business. It was taken from the Guns. Of course, he's talking about back at Final Battle, the Guns did attack them from behind. After that, they stated that the last memories that he had with one of his best friends was taken by them. And it would be so easy to beat their ass. But now they don't need to, they need to beat them where it hurts. And they need them to beat the AEW World Tag Team Champions. They need to become the AEW World Tag Team Champions, and they need to do it for them, and they need to do it for the Briscoes, and for all of us top guys out. So what are my thoughts on this segment? This was a fantastic promo segment by FTR. Clearly, FTR hasn't lost a step whatsoever, and going back, when the Guns won the AEW Tag Team titles, it was kind of questionable if you really think about it. But when the Acclaimed won those tag team titles, everybody was saying, FTR is going to beat him, blah, blah, blah. But if you really think about it, the Acclaimed at the time were the hottest act, one of the hottest acts in AEW. And it kind of wouldn't really kind of give a good look if FTR basically beat the Acclaimed. But I feel like one of the main reasons as to why the Guns won the tag team titles was definitely to drop those titles eventually to FTR. Now, a lot of people are creating the speculation that this is probably going to be a write-off for FTR, considering the fact that there was actually a report that PW Insider put out after FTR made their return at Revolution that some people believe that, FTR is locked in with AEW. But then Dax Harwood on his podcast stated that they didn't sign any extension, like they are still free agents. They are still going to be free agents heading into April, which is when their contract is up. But what are my thoughts on FTR's contract status? It's very weird that Dax Harwood just blatantly just says that on his podcast. If he says it on his podcast, clearly I feel like he's working everybody. And I know that sounds very repetitive when it comes to working people, because a lot of the fans in AEW tend to think that everything is a fucking work. But at the end of the day, not everything is a work. The whole CM Punk incident at the press conference was not a work. Cody leaving AEW last year was not a work. But I feel like this situation right here is one of those instances in which Dax Harwood is just working the fans because, he's such a big fan of wrestling. He does that all the time. But overall, where do I think FTR fits best? I think, at this point, I genuinely believe that FTR should stay with AEW. I wouldn't have a problem if they go to the WWE because clearly, Triple H is going to treat them very, very, very well. But at the same time, I feel like there's a lot more left for FTR to do in AEW. I feel like CM Punk will definitely return. That's just my belief. I may be wrong. I believe CM Punk will come back. I feel like I'm one of the very few people that actually think that CM Punk is going to be coming back. Not only that, if he does come back, I feel like they definitely need to capitalize on the trio of CM Punk and FTR because that was a huge missed opportunity for AEW. Granted, it was not AEW's fault because CM Punk got injured twice, but still, it was not really AEW's fault. But again, FTR is definitely the best tag team in the world, and I do not think that their eventual match with the Guns is not going to be a write-off for FTR. If anything, they are going to be winning the AEW Tag Team Championships for a second time. So those are my thoughts on FTR. All right. Back on Dynamite, we got a backstage interview with Jade Cargill, who is still the TBS champion. Talks about how there are no challengers. She is undefeated, and we're going to Canada next week. And she says, bring out the best opponent that Canada has to offer. Yeah, so Jade Cargill looks like is going to be having an opponent from Canada next week in Winnipeg. What are my thoughts on this? First off, when it comes to Jade Cargill, I get why they put the belt on Jade Cargill. Jade Cargill, he was getting a lot of mainstream attention. I totally understand that. And her in-ring ability is definitely, improving 100%. But at the same time, is Jade Cargill one of the reasons as to why I want to watch Dynamite? No. Even though I like Jade Cargill, and I think her work is absolutely fantastic, and she's definitely going to be a star, I feel like there's no, how do I put it into words? There's no core direction for Jade Cargill on who is going to beat her for that TBS title. There's no direction for her, for somebody to beat her for that TBS championship. There's just no direction at all. And I feel like that's a major issue. Because if you think about it, last year on the first Dynamite of 2022, I was there. Jade Cargill won the TBS championship. And since then, what has, Jade Cargill done? She's like 52-0, 53-0. Okay, we need to start thinking about who should beat Jade Cargill. Because one thing that I do not want is Jade Cargill to hold that TBS championship for the rest of the year. I think it's safe to say that 2023 is the year in which Jade Cargill drops that TBS championship, in my opinion. But still, we really need to start talking about who should beat Jade Cargill. And another issue that I have is the fact that AEW has not really built anybody up that is on the level of Jade Cargill in order for them to beat Jade Cargill for that TBS title. So that is another major issue that AEW has as well regarding her. So we really need to start thinking about who should beat Jade Cargill for that title. And it needs to be somebody big. It can't just be anybody random, because the fact that Jade Cargill has had that title for over a year is pretty monumental, and you need to treat it as a big, big, big deal. But that is my thoughts on that. We got the Jericho Appreciation Society, that being Chris Jericho, Sammy Guevara, and Daniel Garcia taking on AR Fox and Dante and Darius Martin of Top Flight in a trios match, in trios action. Overall thoughts on this match. I thought this match was pretty good overall. I enjoyed the match for what it was, but was it the best trios match that I've seen? No, it wasn't. But really the main thing that happened was actually after the match, and I'll talk about that later on. But Jericho and AR Fox start. Jericho pushes Fox away, but then we get a kick by Fox. Then he drops down Jericho. After that, we get a clothesline in the corner by Fox, dropping himself onto the chest on Jericho in the corner. After that, Fox takes out Jericho to the outside, but then Jericho hugs Sammy Guevara. He kind of bear hugs him, which is pretty hilarious to see. He tags Sammy. Sammy's legal, so we get a couple of kicks by Sammy. He slams down AR Fox. We got a double team attempt by both Jericho and Sammy. At this point, the JAS pose down. Sammy runs into a boot by Fox, but then Sammy hugs Daniel Garcia. So at this point, Darius Martin is the legal man. We get a springboard moonsault by Dante on Garcia. Once we're back in the ring, Dante goes for a springboard, and then he lands into a right hand by Garcia. Once we're back from break, Sammy is in control over Dante Martin, but then Dante tries to tag in, but then he drops down Sammy Guevara. At this point, AR Fox tags in, but then Fox goes for a back elbow. Fox then hits a cutter, but then Jericho and Sammy come in. Jericho then gets sent to the outside, but then Sammy goes to the middle rope. He then drop kicks Jericho and onto the back of Sammy. After that, he goes to the top. He tries to go for a 450, but then misses. He actually lands on his feet from the 450 attempt. He then hits a double cutter off the second rope on Sammy and Garcia. After that, we get a cover engineer fall. Darius tags in. He hits the deadlift German suplex after that. We get a cover engineer fall. We then get a standing Spanish fly on Jericho by Darius Martin. Jericho's insane taking these spots, man, at his age. We get a cover engineer fall. We get a back elbow by Darius, followed by a back flip kick by Darius. We get a cover engineer fall when the Jericho Appreciation Society interferes. Dante then goes for the suicide dive on Garcia. Sammy goes for the jumping knee, but then AR Fox goes for the springboard implosion senton. After that, once we're back in the ring, Jericho hits his boot on Darius. He then counters the Hurricane Rana attempt, and then Jericho tries to apply the walls, but then we get the inside cradle by Darius, followed by the thrust kick. And then Jake Hager goes for the bat. Then Jericho hits the Judas effect, and we get a cover, and the Jericho Appreciation Society get the win. Overall thoughts, not the best trios match, but it was certainly a fine match. Nothing really special. But what happens after the match? Chris Jericho gets the microphone, and Angela Parker says that was the single greatest trios win. And after that, Matt Menard gets the mic, and he asked us did we know that tonight marks the 1-year anniversary of the Jericho Appreciation Society. For over 52 weeks, the epitome of sports entertainers, as Matt Menard states. And after such a beautiful victory, the JAS are the #1 contenders for the AEW World Trios titles. Sammy says that the JAS is also the sexiest group alive, and Jake says that he likes this sexy hat. After that, Jericho says that they are deeming themselves as the new #1 contenders for the Trios Championships, and Jericho calls out the new champions the House of Black. After that, the lights go out, but what happens instead of the House of Black? The Elite come out. Kenny says, "Hi, Chris. For the better part of 3 years, we haven't gotten ourselves into business, or we haven't interfered in any one of our business and vice versa." When you talk about those trios titles, and Kenny Omega continues to cut his promo, but what happens? Don Callis immediately interrupts Kenny Omega and talks about how everyone knows that the Elite established those trios titles. And after the match at Revolution, it's obvious that they are the #1 contenders, not them. Callis then says that him and Jericho have been friends for years. He's one of the greatest pro wrestlers of all time, but he is the second best in Winnipeg. After that, if he had months to train, he'd be #3. But then what happens? The lights go out once again. Malachi Black comes in and says that they are equally deceiving. And next week, if they want these, and then the House of Black actually shows up in between the JAS and the Elite and says if they want these, how about next week? And then the lights go out, and then they disappear. So, it looks like we are going to be getting the Jericho Appreciation Society versus the House of Black versus the Elite in a triple threat trios match for the AEW Trios Championships next week in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Overall, I liked this match. Now, granted, it's going to be fucking chaos considering the fact that there's going to be 9 people wrestling all at once. But I think it's going to be a banger of a match next week. But I will say this. I'm very, very, very disappointed that instead of doing this match, they should have done Jericho versus Omega 3. Because keep in mind, Dynamite next week is going to be in Winnipeg. Clearly, Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega are both from Winnipeg. So it makes no sense for AEW not to book that match. But I'm totally fine with it. Granted, when I think about it, I still get pissed off at the fact that they didn't even book that match. But personally, instead of this match, I would have much rather, see Chris Jericho versus Kenny Omega in a one-on-one match, considering the fact that they're in Winnipeg and you can give the crowd in Winnipeg a treat. And it's also a large attraction for a Dynamite show, in my opinion. That'd be a great main event overall, but they didn't do that. But, oh well, I think next week is going to be a banger of a match. Tony Khan has a backstage announcement. Orange Cassidy requested an open challenge against Jeff Jarrett. And next week, the 5th and final defense of the All-Atlantic Championship will be next week. And he says next week in partnership with Warner Brothers Discovery to support Shazam! Fury of the Gods. It will be Cassidy versus Jarrett for the AEW International Championship. So no longer the AEW All-Atlantic title is going to be called the All-Atlantic title. They are now changing the name into the AEW International Championship. So overall, what are my thoughts on this match? First off, I think the match between Jeff Jarrett and Orange Cassidy is kind of iffy to me because, why is Jeff Jarrett in the title picture? We shouldn't have a guy like Jeff Jarrett in the title picture, in my opinion. We should have guys like Konosuke Takeshita in the title picture. You know what I'm saying? But what are my thoughts about the changing of the name? At first, when he made the announcement, I didn't understand it, and I didn't really have anything to think of it. But the more I realize, I feel like this is probably the best thing to happen to this title because of the fact that, when Cassidy had it, I totally understood why Cassidy had it, and I actually liked the fact that Orange Cassidy was the All-Atlantic champion. But at the same time, what was really the whole purpose of the All-Atlantic title? For that champion to basically defend his title on international soil. And I feel like naming it the All-Atlantic title, is not really the best naming of a championship, and I feel like them naming it the International Championship is definitely the way to go. And I think it's probably the best thing for AEW to do because of the fact that right now, the current state of the TNT Championship is not, very good. The TNT Championship at this point is in shambles. And if you really think about it, the international title or the All-Atlantic title, whatever you want to call it, I feel like right now that championship is way more important than the TNT Championship, in my opinion. I feel like that title is so much more important because of the fact that, you're going to have talent, that hold this title, defend it internationally. And not only that, it gives the title a purpose and a meaning as to why these wrestlers are defending this particular championship. So overall, I'm definitely for this. Another thing about the whole Shazam! Fury of the Gods, I'm not the biggest DC fan, but if, Warner Brothers Discovery is going to allow AEW to promote this movie, clearly their relationship is definitely 100% very good and intact. After this, we got the Blackpool Combat Club taking on John Silver and Alex Reynolds. Overall, of course, this is coming off the insane and violent Texas death match that both Hangman Page and Jon Moxley had. Overall, this was a very good match, in my opinion. I enjoyed this match for what it was, but the story did not happen in the match. The story happened after the match. So Claudio and Moxley are in control. Claudio is in control after that. Both try to suplex one another. We get a snap suplex by Silver on Claudio. Moxley then comes in. We get a cover and a near fall. We get a stomp on Silver by Moxley, but then Claudio goes for a slam. And after that, he hits the drop kick. I think it was a drop kick. I'm not sure. But then Claudio is the legal man. We get a side headlock by Claudio. At this point, Alex Reynolds is the legal man. He hits the running elbow on Claudio, but then we get a shot to the back of the Ring of Honor World Champion. After that, we get a suicide dive by Alex Reynolds, followed by a back elbow. Later on, I'm not really going to go through this match a lot. Moxley tries to apply the triangle, silver transitions, but then Claudio comes in. Claudio, after that, actually, no, we get a combination by the Dark Order on Claudio. We get a combination of strikes on Moxley. After that, Moxley goes for the half and half. We get a front face lock by Moxley, and then Reynolds taps out. So the Blackpool Combat Club get the win. After the match, Moxley continues to apply the choke. But then Silver comes in, and Moxley continues to apply the Bulldog choke, and Claudio and Wheeler Yuta are doing nothing about it. What happens is Hangman Page comes out for the save, and then what happens is Hangman hits a right hand on Claudio, but then after that, the Blackpool Combat Club beats the shit out of Hangman Page, and it looks like it's official. The Blackpool Combat Club are heels. I think that is the best thing to ever happen. You know, them turning heel is probably the best thing to ever happen to that group. You guys know me. I'm probably the biggest fan of the Blackpool Combat Club that there is. But I feel like after William Regal left, we did not really know the status of the group. And honestly, I genuinely believe that if they want to go into the right direction, a heel run with the Blackpool Combat Club is definitely the right direction to go. Because it gives Moxley, it gives Claudio, it gives Wheeler Yuta something new to do. And if you also think about it, it kind of perfectly explains as to why Bryan Danielson was not really there, especially after the promo that he cut backstage after his match against MJF at Revolution, which I will be talking about later on. So it's very interesting. You know, Moxley is very good as a heel. You know, a lot of people tend to deny that, but Moxley is very good as a heel. He is a sadistic son of a bitch, and that is exactly what I like about Moxley. Claudio, of course, is heading into a feud with Eddie Kingston over on the Ring of Honor side of things, and it looks like Eddie Kingston is going to be the babyface, and most likely Claudio is going to be the heel, so it would make perfect sense for that to happen, but it's very interesting to see the direction of the Blackpool Combat Club. I'm definitely excited for that. The Acclaimed are backstage. They talk about how they are on the road to the Tag Team Championships, and then the JAS come in, and then they says that they both love the Acclaimed, and they know that they are sports entertainers at heart. I am through with this whole sports entertainment versus pro wrestling type shit, bro. It's really nothing special. And then the Acclaimed laugh, and then they leave. We then get an emotional video package of Bryan Danielson cutting a very emotional promo after his match against MJF in the Iron Man match. And this is something very interesting that Bryan Danielson stated in the end. So what happens is Bryan Danielson talks about how he always thought he was doing this for his kids. He was forced to retire, and he wanted to teach them that if you love something, you got to fight for it. He then realized that tonight, Maxwell was right this whole time. His whole career was about never giving up. That is always what he thought what was best. When he woke up from being unconscious, when he was applied in the label lock, his first thought was to fucking fight. And as he was fighting, he realized that he couldn't feel his arms. His left leg did not have any strength. And when Max said that after the Iron Man match that he wouldn't play with his kids, it dawned on him that he was right. He was putting himself before his fame, and more than tapping out, it made him more ashamed than anything else. And the last line that Bryan Danielson stated in this fantastic emotional promo, it says that it's time, or I should say he stated, it's time for him to go home. What does that imply? Very interesting stuff. What does that imply now? It could be nothing. And it could be Bryan Danielson healing up after the grueling match that he had with MJF and, you know, him taking a break. Because not only it was the match that he had with MJF in the Iron Man match, it was, you know, all the previous 5 matches that he had. I think it was 5 matches that he had with guys like Roosh, with guys like Timothy Thatcher, those guys. So we do not know what is going with Bryan Danielson, but we all know for a fact that Tony Khan wants to keep Bryan Danielson healthy because we are on the road to Forbidden Door. And Forbidden Door is going to be very interesting. Of course, last year at Forbidden Door, it was originally going to be Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. Now, the interesting thing about Zack Sabre Jr. is, of course, that match didn't happen. But this past Thursday on Ring of Honor television, you did have Zack Sabre Jr. call out Bryan Danielson. That was very interesting. It looks like they're going to be leading towards that direction. Another thing that came into not only my head, but a lot of other people's heads on social media was the meaning of "it's time for me to go home." What does that mean? A lot of people on social media were thinking about, hey, what if that signifies Bryan Danielson is going to be making his return to Ring of Honor? Now, Ring of Honor did tape their first 4 episodes of the show, but it's very, very, very interesting to think about that because of the fact that we are on the road to Supercard of Honor. It's interesting right now that Claudio is currently feuding with Eddie Kingston, and it looks like Claudio is going to be the heel in that whole feud, considering what happened on this show with the Blackpool Combat Club turning heel on Dark Order. That is very interesting. What if that signifies that Bryan Danielson is officially out of the Blackpool Combat Club and is going to go after Claudio after his feud with Kingston is up? I don't know about you guys, but that is some possible speculation. But do I think Bryan Danielson definitely deserves a break and definitely deserves to heal up? Absolutely. He worked his ass off, and hats off to Bryan Danielson. But very interesting scenarios. What does he mean by going home? A lot of people are saying Ring of Honor, and if you honestly think that, I can't really blame you, and I'm definitely here for it. But yeah, that's all I got to say about that. We then get the main event, and the main event, that being Wardlow versus Powerhouse Hobbs for the TNT Championship. Yeah, this match was fine up until the ending. And I'll talk about that as we head towards this match. Not really that long of a match. Both fight it out in the parking lot. Wardlow goes for repeated right hands. Hobbs sends Wardlow to the door. Hobbs then throws, I believe, this big-ass barrel on Wardlow on the car window. Hobbs then goes for a suplex on the hood of the car on Wardlow. Wardlow then goes for a backdrop on the windshield. After that, both continue to fight it out. Once we're back from commercial break, both are in the ring. Wardlow hits the F10. We get a cover and a near fall, but then Hobbs goes for the spine buster. We then get a cover and a near fall, but then Hobbs is on the outside, exposing the barricade. He then sends Wardlow to the barricade, and then Hobbs sets up the table. But Wardlow goes back, and then Hobbs is placed onto the table. Wardlow then gets sent, basically hits a senton off the top. After that, Wardlow takes Powerhouse Hobbs to the ramp. After that, they're both on the stage. They both continue to fight it out. And what happens? QT fucking Marshall comes out. And he basically hits Wardlow from behind. He hits a low blow. And then he hits a chair on Wardlow. QT then helps him up. And what happens is both QT and Hobbs both drop down Wardlow through the stage, through crash pads. Now, hear me out. When it comes to crash pads, I totally understand why they use them. Totally makes sense. You want to protect your wrestlers. I'm for that. But Jesus Christ, the production, dude. If you're going to have a wrestler drop down, getting dropped on crash pads, at least make it realistic as possible. Don't just close up Wardlow literally crashing through crash pads. Come on, production. Fix that shit, please. You know, this is why WWE is so good at production, because every time when they do a spot like this, they tend to pan to actually the wrestler throwing the other wrestler down instead of actually showing the wrestler falling down. Like, again, production, fix it. Don't just, I don't know, man. It pissed me off when they did that. But what happens after that? Wardlow then gets counted out, and Hobbs is your new TNT champion. This is going to be... I'm trying to put my words nicely here. I need to put my words nicely. Honestly. I need to put my words very nicely. Look, I'm happy for Hobbs winning the TNT Championship. Okay? I want to get that out of the way right now. This is nothing against Powerhouse Hobbs. I think Hobbs winning the TNT Championship was long overdue. But him winning the title, congratulations. I'm not mad about that. What I am mad about is the fact that not only Wardlow just winning the fucking title on the pay-per-view, he beat Samoa Joe on the pay-per-view last Sunday at Revolution, and he just lost it 3 days later. He held that title for a span of 72 fucking hours. And the other thing that pissed me off was the way that they executed it. The way that they executed it really pissed me off, man. First off, why do you have QT Marshall involved in this? QT Marshall, and this is nothing personal against QT, but QT Marshall is the most generic heel in the business today. He is so generic, bro. He's just so generic. And not only that, you know, everything that we have seen regarding Samoa Joe and Wardlow is deemed absolutely fucking useless. It makes no sense. I swear, AEW not only butchered Wardlow once, they butchered him twice. How do you bury a guy like Wardlow? And I'm sorry, I know I'm using the word buried, and that term gets thrown around loosely, and a lot of people in the community do not know what the word burial means. But I'm sorry, man. They buried Wardlow badly. If there's one thing that you can criticize AEW about, it's actually two things. Number one, Wardlow. They treated him so badly, man. And number two, the TNT Championship. The state of the TNT Championship is so terrible right now. I remember when Darby Allin had that title. Darby Allin was defending that title every week. And here on the Dynamite Reviews, every fucking week, every single week, I was saying, man, the TNT title is actually going to get, it's actually becoming more important than it was last year. But then all of a sudden, you had Joe take that title away from Darby Allin in a great match. But Joe winning the title made absolutely no sense whatsoever, considering that Darby Allin just won that championship once again. It made no sense. I get it. It was for Joe to feud with Wardlow. But instead of having Joe feud with Wardlow for the title, couldn't you just have Joe feud with Wardlow without the title and just make it a grudge feud? Because clearly, when it came to Wardlow telling the whole story about why his hair mattered, clearly that went from business to personal. So instead of making this all about the TNT Championship, why can't you just all make it about a grudge feud when it came to Samoa Joe and Wardlow? They completely botched this, and they booked themselves into a corner very, very, very bad. AEW completely, and I mean this wholeheartedly, man, they completely fucked over Wardlow badly. And look, I know I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this, because I know the AEW fans do not fucking like criticism. Same thing as WWE fans. They don't like fucking criticism either. But at the end of the day, I'm a fan of fucking professional wrestling. And whenever I see something that I don't like, I'm going to call that shit out right here and right now. This was the stupidest thing that they have ever done. One of the stupidest things. I thought this was very stupid. I'm not mad about Hobbs winning that title. I think Hobbs winning that title is great. It's just the timing was terrible because Wardlow just won that fucking title. And the association with QT just makes no sense in my opinion. But again, man, AEW completely just butchered Wardlow so bad, man. They really have, man. It's sad too, because if you look where Wardlow was, last year after the dog collar match that MJF and CM Punk had, compared to now, it's just fucking sad. It's ridiculous, man. It's just absolutely ridiculous. It's safe to say that the All-Atlantic title or the international title is more important than the TNT Championship. The TNT Championship, if you compare the state of the TNT Championship from where it was now compared to where it was when it was first introduced by Cody Rhodes 3 years ago, you're going to be like, holy shit, the TNT title has been a downgrade ever since. It's a damn shame, man. It's a damn shame, but that's what happens when you book yourself into a fucking corner. That's exactly what happens. And I honestly feel really bad for Wardlow. I really do, man. Like, this man legitimately, got robbed. He got robbed legitimately. and all of a sudden he drops the title. You know what I'm saying? It really does suck. It really does suck, man. Where's Wardlow going to go now? I know a lot of people are on social media are saying, oh my God, Wardlow should feud with MJF because there is the story. I get that. But let's be honest with ourselves. Do you, in this current state of Wardlow, do you want to see him feud with MJF in a main event title program? I know I don't. Honestly, I'm through with that feud at this point. I don't want to see those guys feud at all. I honestly don't. AEW fucked over Wardlow badly. Not once. They fucked him over twice. And that's all I got to say about that. All right. That was my AEW Dynamite review. We actually went over an hour. Holy shit. Longest I probably ever did a Dynamite review. But that was my AEW Dynamite review from March 8th, 2023. Overall thoughts on the show. I thought the show was pretty good. Not the best Dynamite, but, Dynamite, for most weeks, Dynamite is a fucking fantastic show. But let's be honest, on this show, some of the booking decisions were very, very questionable. And that TNT title, when it came to Hobbs and Wardlow, really, really, really pissed me off. But yeah, overall, I thought this was a fine show. Not the best show, but not a fine show. But yeah, those were my thoughts on AEW Dynamite. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications. I'd be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the freaking referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays, signing out.